the 16th. Our first order of business tonight is the appointment of a temporary chairman for this meeting, and that in the absence of our chairperson and our vice chairman. This is so that we can facilitate the need of the county and continue with business. Do we have a motion?
I like to make the motion that Raymond Ray be chairman.
Do we have a
Acting
second?
chairman. That's the way you go.
Temporary chairman.
Temporary chairman.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, we'll call for the question. All in favor, please raise your right hand. Thank you. Motion. We have no presentations or proclamations, so therefore, we will have the presentation of financial statement. Ms. Garrison?
I'll be happy to answer any questions you might have.
How, the splash, how are we doing with the revenues? Is continuing to still decline?
They're not declining still, it's still at about 92% of collections, but all the SPLOST goes towards debt service right now.
Does anyone else have?
I have a question. Are the numbers accurate on the hotel motel tax? Did I read that right, 747,000?
Fund balance?
Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Is any of that money promised already out?
Well, the budget, you know, what you see in the budget, I think it's,
That's okay.
Yeah.
Any other questions?
No.
Do we have a motion to approve?
Make the motion to approve the financial statement for the
Second.
2-month period ended August 31st, 2013.
Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the financial statements for the 2 months ending August 31st, 2013. All in favor of said motion and second, please indicate your favor by raising your hand. Thank you. Motion carries. Unanimous. Thank you, Jenna. With that, under citizen comments, we'll read our little paragraph here. Speakers must sign up prior to the meeting and provide their names, addresses, and the topic in which they will speak. Speakers must direct all comments toward the board only. Speakers will be allotted 3 minutes to speak on their chosen topic and related to matters pertaining to the jurisdiction of the Board of Commissioners. No questions will be asked by any of the commissioners during the citizen comments. Outbursts from the audience will not be tolerated. Common courtesy and civility are expected at all times during this meeting. If a question is presented, we will follow up in a written letter. And we have Ms. Deborah Frost as number 1.
Good evening. Thank you all for taking the time for coming here. I had prepared a speech, but I feel it's really important to talk on this issue. You all want to raise taxes again. And frankly, I don't get it. I mean, I understand the county's broke. You went through $11 million in just a couple of years. And I know some of the money went for the Motorola megahertz tower, but you all went $4 million over and above what had been originally approved by the SPLOST, by the county. And so that was $4 million that was overdone. And then you went and spent, and agreed to spend for another 15 years, $4,500 a month to rent a tower, when frankly, it could have cost you just $26,000 to $30,000 to build one, and then the cost of the land. And you could have made money off of it, because then you could have turned around and rented it to cell phone companies. And instead, you're digging the county in deeper and deeper and deeper. On that basis, I don't think you all should be raising taxes. I think you all need to learn how to budget. And I understand everything, but you need to budget. So anyways, that's what I have to say. So stop the reckless spending. Thank you.
Ms. Foster, will you give us your address, please?
Yes.
For the record.
It's 724 Teeman Road.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Next, we have Ms. Joyce Adams.
I'd just like to ask, since everybody has voted down the airport, why do y'all want to commit $150,000 to the airport authority when so many taxpayers don't want the airport anyway?
Are you asking the question, my lady?
I'm asking you.
We'll document the reply and send it back to you at the address you've given at 102 Kathy Lane,
Right.
Griffin.
Right.
Yes, ma'am.
And as far as the tax rate increase, I mean, I don't agree with that, but, you know, y'all are pretty much gonna do what y'all wanna do anyway, but thank you.
Thank you for your time, ma'am. Okay, moving right along. We have the minutes to consider approval of the minutes of August 19, 2013 extraordinary session, the August 22nd, 2013 zoning public hearing, and the August 23rd follow-up retreat. Do we have a motion to approve?
I make a motion we consider approval of the minutes of the August 19, 2013 extraordinary session, August 22nd, 2013 zoning public hearing, August 23rd, 2013 follow-up retreat.
Do we have a
I
second?
don't want to.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, we'll call for the question. All in favor of the approval of the minutes as identified, please show your favor by raising your right hand. Thank you. Motion carries unanimous. Under the consent agenda, ladies and gentlemen, normally we can address this one-on-one, one at a time, or would you like to approve the entire consent agenda? If we want to do the entire agenda, then I will name each one and we'll just vote one time, or we can go through each one.
Can we do all three of them?
Yes, unless somebody wants one thing by itself.
Do all three of them.
Under the consent agenda, item 1, consider approval on second reading application 1302 Zulu, Joseph P. and Miriam F. O'Day, owners, 1644 Tamachichi Road, 6.88 acres, more or less, located in land lot 23 of the second land district, requesting a rezoning from R2, single-family resident, to R1, agriculture and residential. Item 2, consider approval on second reading amendment to the UDO A-13-02, Article 4, General Procedures, Section 408, delete exemption from fee permit. Item 3, consider approval on second reading amendment to UDO A-13-05, Appendix C, ordinance establishing Board of Appeals, Section 2, 3, 3A, and 7. Amend numbers of Board of Appeal members. Ladies and gentlemen, do we have a motion to approve the consent agenda as identified?
Aye.
Make a motion to approve.
We have a motion and a second.
I second.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor stated motion and second, please indicate said favor. Unanimous, thank you very much. Okay, we have no old business, moving to the new business. Consider approval of resolution authorizing the issuance of a $6.9 million or $6,900,000 tax anticipation note. With that, Chad?
Yes, sir. I will pass this over to Ms. Garrison to go over our particulars, the TAM.
I've got Todd Barnes here with Robert Baird Company. We're borrowing $6.9 million. Bank of America, or Regions. Regions Bank, won the bid at 0.982%. If y'all have any questions, I'll try to answer them, or Todd can answer them for you.
For the purpose of the public, would you identify the tax anticipation note and why?
A tax anticipation note is a short-term borrowing. The reason we're doing that is because we're having cash flow problems right now. And that really stems, I believe, from the fact that our property taxes were not due last year until February. So we had to go a longer time without getting our taxes, and, Our business runs in a cycle. We get taxes usually in November, and that's supposed to carry us through until this time in the following year. And because the taxes were so late, and they were late the previous year, this year we're hoping to have taxes due in December, but because of our cash flow, we recommend borrowing a tax anticipation note. It's secured by the property taxes, and it will be paid back by December 31st of this year.
My question on that was the term, so you just clarify that for me, thank you.
Yes, ma'am, it's short-term, it's mandatory that it's paid back by December 31st.
And as I was reading that, I know that we selected Regions Bank. What was the issue with Bank of America? There was some type of
It was actually,
fees or something that was attributed to that?
all right, the other was JP Morgan Chase, actually, and while they had a slightly lower interest rate, they were going to charge $2,500 of legal fees for their bank counsel. And so when you put that together, their bid was actually higher than Regions Bank.
Net interest rate is 9.832.
0.9832.
0.9832.
Yes, sir.
A little bit better.
Right.
Well, I mean, I just looked at that. Just want to see if y'all were paying attention.
Todd, would you explain the process that we went through to determine, to come up with regions?
Yes, sir. We sent out we put together and sent out a notice of sale describing the borrowing and the terms of it, along with the projected cash flows for the county. Sent those to all the local banks, as well as a handful of other banks who typically bid on these types of transactions. I believe about 9 or 10 in all we received that package. Bids were due last Thursday morning at 11. We received 3 bids, the Regions Bank, JP Morgan Chase, and then 2 of your local banks, United Bank and First National Bank of Griffin, went together and submitted a joint bid. And again, it was awarded to the bank with the lowest overall cost to the county, which was, in this case, Regions Bank. And to approve this tonight, and it's set up to close on Thursday of this week. They'll fund the loan in the county's account on Thursday.
Yeah, what happens if we can't pay all of it back by December 31st? Because of appeals, people got taxes, they appeal the taxes.
I don't think there would be enough appeals that would prevent us from paying it back. Typically, Mr. Miller, the banks pay the mortgages, they pay them early.
Jenna, what's the average annual revenue from property taxes?
18 million.
Okay. And if I recall, about 1.6 are tied up with, or 2.6 are tied up with the Board of Equalization, and about, what, 2,900 appeals? Okay. Anything else, Todd, Jenna? Any other questions, ladies and gentlemen?
You have a resolution before you to authorize it.
Staff recommends approval on the resolution.
Mhm.
I make a motion that we consider approval of a resolution authorizing the not borrowing of $6.6,900,000 tax anticipation note.
My second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor of stated motion and second, please indicate said favor by raising your hand. Motion carries. Todd, thank you very much for coming down here tonight. Jenna, thank you. And thank you for your work on all this, Todd.
My pleasure. Thank you, sir.
Item 2, consider approval of an easement agreement with CFMH2 Southampton LLC for existing water and sewage lines located in the county right away. Chad, will you address this? You and Mr. Fortune?
If y'all remember back in May of this year, we had a rezoning that came through for Southampton Manufactured Home Park, where they rezoned from C1 to R3 to get into zoning compliance, so no longer have to deal with non-conforming issues. In addition to going through that process, it was noted that back in the 70s, that they have one of their sewer facility and their water facility that's off-site. And it's served by, obviously, the water sewer lines that connect to the park from those off-site facilities. And back in the '70s, there were lines that were put in. These are two 6-inch pipes buried in 24-inch steel casing along portions of Old Atlanta Road. Basically, what you have before you is an easement agreement. Mr. Fortune will go through any particulars on that with you, but this is basically to ensure both protect Spalding County and the manufactured home park, that future continual operation of those facilities. It also details any type of maintenance concerns. If they've got to get in and maintain their lines, it's at their expense. And there is also they will pay Spalding County a one-time sum of $35,000 for the easement right. Based on that, we have a copy of the easement agreement, and we are recommending approval. Contingent, however, upon acceptable plat. They do have to get us a defined plat of the easement.
We're asking them to provide us with an as-built plat to show us exactly where these lines are. We have traditionally not let people get on our rights of way. We've kept them clear unless they're public utilities. For private utilities, we've not allowed. It came to light, I'm going to guess about 5 or 6 years ago that these lines, in fact, were on our right of way. We didn't know. You can't see them. They're buried. And so they've been pushing us for an easement. We had wanted to give them a license as opposed to an easement because that would allow us to terminate it at will, which of course didn't make them happy. And with the new purchaser, apparently they were really anxious to have a legal right to stay there. So we've negotiated back and forth. They have to repair it, fix it. If we ever tell them you got to move it, we have agreed that if we have sufficient property to allow them to relocate on our new right-of-way, if we have to widen the road, that we will let them do that at no charge because they're going to pay us $35,000. I told him, however, we could pass it. We could pass on it tonight conditionally. We don't have a plat yet. We want to see exactly where they are. And we don't expect any surprises, but until we get the plat, we don't know. So what we're asking you to do tonight is to agree to grant them the easement in return for the money, conditioned upon them providing us with a satisfactory plat that is acceptable. In other words, the lines are where they're supposed to be. They don't pose a problem for us. Assuming that they are, if we have a deal, they will send us the money, we will send them the easement. If for any reason the plat reveals that the lines are different than we had anticipated, then we'll just stop it right there and come back and tell you. But we don't anticipate that.
Can I, what does CFMH2 stand for?
That is their,
Got any name?
The limited liability.
Yeah.
that's just their title, their corporation, their LLC. They specialize.
It's probably a bunch of initials of the two guys that own it, but I have no idea.
Okay, that's
And
fine.
we're confident about the safety and the health inspections and all that kind of stuff.
Oh, yes,
Features in
yeah,
there.
and they've even gotten a deal from the railroad, which I would have thought was impossible. Nobody can deal with the railroad. Apparently, they worked it out.
They're gonna go into the railroad track.
They're on
They're
them.
already there.
They're on their, yes, they're on their right of way. Of course, the railroad didn't know that either. I don't know how they got it in the ground. It's been in there about 40-some odd years.
It's been a long time.
Yeah.
The trust court's been
Anyway.
walking them out.
Any other questions of Chad or
No.
Jim? With that,
I make a motion that we approve the easement agreement with CFMH2 Southampton LLC for existing water and sewer lines located in the county right of way.
conditionally upon a satisfactory plat.
With Jimmy and Chad.
Okay, do we have a
I
second?
second that.
We have a motion and a second, and I'll restate that for approval of the easement agreement with CFMH2 with Southampton LLC for existing water and sewage lines located in Spalding County right-of-way. Conditional approval upon satisfactory submission of plat of the property. Is that correct?
Correct.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, we'll call for the question. All in favor, please indicate said favor. Unanimous, thank you very much. Okay, item 3, consider declaring surplus and authorize for sale bids 15 vehicles from the Spalding County Sheriff's Department and authorization to transfer 1 vehicle to the City of Zebulon Police Department. Sheriff, would you like to address?
These are vehicles purchased through the county in times past, and they have been taken out of service. They are just surplus with us at this time, and we have customarily here for a while put them up for sale. I think the county manager's office approached it through gov.com, some chapters.
We're going to do COB.
Okay, seal bids on these. We have bid them out in different ways in the past, but these are surplus vehicles. They're not being used. Some of them are running, some of them may not be, but they're all one owners. But like I say, we normally do it this way, and it gets them off the lot. We've already taken them off the insurance, and somebody gets use out of it.
This, the one that, wasn't the one that went to Jonesboro?
We sent
earlier?
we sent one.
Was it in this group here?
No, it was a different group.
Just a different
As
group?
far as I know, it's not in these, not included in these.
Okay.
And I understand it, according to this, it's Zebulon Police Department, is not getting one according to this. So,
Any other questions?
So we can go back to be clear, so we're selling it to the City of Zebulon Police Department?
Transfer.
$1.
Okay.
I mean, what's the average mileage on these vehicles, Sheriff?
it will vary anywhere from 100, 150 to 200,000.
Okay. With that, anything else? Chad, do you have anything to add?
Can I ask one thing? Why is it for $1? I mean,
Just a transfer on, just a transfer.
can you transfer one of them that runs to me for $1?
Still bid on that one.
I just wondered, I mean, you know, I thought that they paid for the one at Jonesboro. I thought they paid more than $1 for it.
I'm unaware of it.
They didn't?
I don't know.
Okay. Living and learning, okay.
But we have to remember that when we had the tornado, both, Jonesboro and law enforcement agencies from around, and public safety from around the surrounding community donated time, effort, and things of that nature. And then, of course, they were paid back once we received our payment from FEMA, but they came with no questions asked at that point in time. So this is whether we return the favor or whatever. Goodwill, good faith.
Okay.
Do we have a motion?
Okay, I make a motion to consider declaring surplus and authorize for the sealed bids of 15 vehicles from the Spalding County Sheriff's Department and authorization to transfer 1 vehicle to the City of Zebulon Police Department for $1.
Okay. Do we have a second? We have a motion and a second to declare surplus and authorize for sale bids 15 vehicles from the Spalding County Sheriff's Department and authorization of 1 transfer vehicle or transfer of 1 vehicle to the City of Zebulon Police Department for $1. All in favor of stated motion, we will call a question. None? All in favor of stated motion and second, please indicate said favor. Unanimous, motion carries. Thank you. Item 4, consider approval of the boundary line agreement of rural property jointly owned by Spalding County and the City of Griffin, formerly used as the Shoal Creek Municipal Landfill. Jim Fortune will address this.
A few months ago, Mr. Bailey, who owns the land immediately to the south of the old landfill, contacted us and said that he had purchased the property and that he thought there was a discrepancy on his north property line, which was our south property line, that there were some concrete monuments on the ground, that he had actually been deeded property which would lie north of the monuments, but that he thought that we needed to clean up that discrepancy. He wanted primarily so if his children inherited this property someday, they wouldn't have a boundary line dispute. We looked into it. There were various plats. Some of them didn't agree with each other. Looked at the old deeds, and he was quite content if we all agreed that the concrete monuments in the ground were or was the property line. And that would actually give us more land than we thought we had, because our deeds call for a property line north of the concrete monuments. So, to clear this up, we had a very willing neighbor who wanted the line squared away. We got a survey which simply established that property line and tied it into the concrete monuments that have been there since nobody knows when. Everybody agreed with that. The city has already adopted it. We own it with the city, so it had to be kind of a three-way deal. The Baileys have already signed it. What this agreement simply says is that all the parties who are owners of the property on either side of the line now agree that the property line is this line, and nobody claims anything other than that. So I think it's a very good deal. It was quick and inexpensive to get it squared away. We've actually got more land now than we had before, and we would certainly recommend that you approve that.
And we'll record the plat.
Plat's
It's
recorded,
already been recorded.
Already recorded.
and yes, it will make reference to the plat.
Any questions, ladies and gentlemen? Then do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion that we approve the boundary line agreement of real estate, real property jointly for Spalding County and the city of Griffin formerly used as the Shoal Creek Municipal Landfill.
We have a second. Any further questions? Hearing none, we'll call for the question. All in favor of the motion identified, please indicate said favor by raising your right hand. Motion carries. Thank you, unanimous. Number 5, consider approval on first reading ordinance 2013-11, amending the Spalding County Code of Ordinances, Part 6, licensing and regulation, Chapter 1, businesses and occupations, Article G, excise tax on hotels, to add Section 6-1176 entitled Enforcement. Mr. Fortune?
This came about as a result of one of our motels not remitting what we refer to as the hotel motel tax in a timely fashion. I understand they have now paid it, but as we looked at the code section when it was enacted back in '94, before my reign, for whatever reason, there was no enforcement section, and there were no stated penalties. There was some,
It was
like
essentially
half of
add-ons.
1%, but the tax is about this much, so it wasn't enough to be a problem. So what we've done is we have added this section, which is what we call our standard enforcement section. We have in virtually every ordinance we've got, which would make this an offense, which if somebody doesn't pay their hotel motel tax, we can cite them for violation of a county ordinance, and we can take them to magistrate court, and we can cite them every single day they don't pay it. So it puts some teeth in it. We don't want to cite people, we just want them to send us the tax. We're quite content to leave them alone, but if they don't, we've got more teeth to it now, and that's what this does.
Any further questions? With that, do we have a motion?
I make a motion that we approve on first reading ordinance 2013-11, amending the Spalding County Code of Ordinances, Part 4. Yes. I'll read. Licensing and regulation, Chapter 1, businesses and occupation, Article G, excise tax on hotels, to add a section 6-1176 entitlement enforcement. Excuse me.
We have a motion, do we have a second?
I have a second.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, we'll call for the question. All in favor of the first reading of ordinance 2013-11, amending the Spalding County Code of Ordinances, Part 6, licensing and regulations, Chapter 1, businesses and occupations, Article G, excise tax on hotels, to add Section 6-1176 entitled Enforcement. All in favor, please indicate said in favor. Unanimous, 3-0. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Item 6, consider approval on first reading, ordinance 2013-12, to amend the Spalding County Code of Ordinances, Part 6, licensing and regulations, Chapter 1, businesses and occupations, Article D, general business and occupation tax by deleting in its entirety Section 6-1104, penalty of ordinance violation, and adding a new section 6-1104 entitled penalty of ordinance violation. Gentlemen?
This is very similar to the one you just passed. When we realized that the hotel motel tax didn't have any teeth to it, we looked at the business license, the general section, and realized that it simply called for a fine of $1,000. Here again, that was enacted before I got here. And it just didn't really have the proper terminology in it. So by striking the old section, we have inserted the new section, which here again is our standard ordinance violation, identical to what you just passed. So we now, if a person does business without the proper licenses or having not paid the proper tax, we can cite them. We're not going to hound them. We're going to tell them you need to get this squared away. That's the first citation. If they don't do it, then we can step it up and just make it difficult for them. And it could lead to termination of their right to do business in Spalding County if they just don't pay it. So that's what this one does.
Is the fee the same?
Sorry.
The fee?
It's really not a fee, it's a license. Go ahead.
You would basically be subject to what the magistrate court would say at that time. Once the citation was issued, then they go to the magistrate.
You mean the fee, or you talking about the penalty?
The penalty.
Penalty can be graduated, that's up to the judge. I mean, technically, she can give them 60 days in jail and or a fine of $1,000 and or both in the discretion of the court. I think it's pretty unlikely she's going to jail anybody, but she could hit them for $300 a day until they get it paid. So here again, we don't want to cite them, we simply want them to do what they're supposed to do
And each offense is a separate offense.
every day.
So if they do it to start with, it's not a problem. If not, then they have a problem.
We're going to warn them, we're going to tell them, you need to get this squared away. If they do it, fine. If they don't, they got a problem.
Okay. With that, ladies and gentlemen, do we have a motion? Or is there any further discussion? Do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Do we have a second? And a second, excuse me, let me catch up. Okay, with that, no further discussion. Consider approval on first reading, article of ordinance 2013-12 to amend the Spalding County Code of Ordinances, Part 6, Licensing and Regulation, Chapter 1, Businesses and Occupations, Article B, excuse me, General Business and Occupation Tax by deleting in its entirety Section 6-1104, Penalty of Ordinance Violation, and adding a new Section 6-1104 entitled Penalty of Ordinance Violation. All in favor of stated motion and second, please indicate your favor. Motion carries unanimous. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. With that, moving to item 7, consider approval on first reading ordinance 2013-10 to amend the Spalding County Code of Ordinance Part 6, Licensing and Regulations, Chapter 2, Street and Sidewalk Use and Regulations, Section 6-2004, Route of Travel Through Trucks, Item E, to provide for no through truck on Malloy Road from Highway 16 to Rovers Atello. Chad?
It's my understanding that this stemmed from a complaint that was a citizen's complaint that we received regarding garbage trucks that were cutting through from 362 to State Route 16 to get to the C&D landfill. Sheriff Bean, after the review of the complaint, Sheriff Bean has agreed that large trucks should not be used on Malloy Road due to safety concerns. At this point, staff recommends approval of the ordinance.
Any other questions, ladies and gentlemen? Do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
With that, ladies and gentlemen, we'll reread the motion to approve on first reading ordinance 20-10 to amend the Spalding County Code of Ordinances, Part 6, Licensing and Regulation, Chapter 2, Street and Sidewalk Use and Regulations, Section 6-2004, Route of Travel Through Trucks, Item E, to provide for no through trucks on the Malloy Road from Georgia Highway 16 to Rovers Atello Road. If there's no further discussion, we'll call for the question. All in favor, please indicate said favor. Unanimous, motion carries. Thank you very much. Item 8, consider approval on first reading an ordinance amending the Spalding County Code of Ordinances, Part 6, Licensing and Regulations, Chapter 1, Business and Occupation, by deleting Article A, Sale of Malt Beverage and Wine, Article B, Retail Liquor Package Store, and Article C, Sale of alcoholic beverages for consumption on premises in their entirety, and adding a new Section A, Sale of alcoholic beverages. Mr. Fortune?
Well, what you see here is a very comprehensive rewrite of the whole alcohol section. And I don't think you want me to go through this line by line. Yeah, I don't.
Sure don't. I tried to read it.
So hopefully you've all read it. If you have questions, we will be glad to try to answer them. But it's brand new. What we tried to do is tag it to the state law. We've tried to streamline it. We've taken out a lot of what we thought were just senseless regulation that all it did was just create problems. A lot of, for example, we said you couldn't sell alcohol if you were arrested if you didn't have seating for at least 40 people. Well, first of all, you know, who's going to go count? And you know, if you have 40 there today, you have 20 there tomorrow, then you know you're still in compliance. And it may know, and why do we care? I mean, if somebody can't, it's an economic decision for somebody to make. If it doesn't make money, they're not going to be in business long. So they're the best judge of what is economically viable for them. So as I say, we took out, we're not in violation of any state law. We meet all the minimum requirements, but we just took out a lot of what just made no sense to us and streamlined. So it's very comprehensive. I mean, it's a total rewrite. And I realize it would be like reading a phone book, but you probably need to read it at some point in time. And you may come back and say, I got a question, why did you change this? Why didn't you leave it the way it was? And I think we can answer your questions. We spent about one full day with everybody at the table going through it line by line and deciding what needed to stay and what needed to go. So if anybody's got a question, we'll try and answer it.
Approval date, this will be January the 1st, right?
We definitely recommend approval January 1, 2014.
You gotta have two readings,
Effective date.
Effective.
effective date, but we still have to have two readings. This meeting, one more meeting, and then it go into effect January the
Correct.
1st.
Effective date will be 1 January.
We're dealing with renewals right now that are under the current language, so we don't want the two to overlap with new language on top of the old that's going through the renewal process right now. Actually, today was the cutoff date for renewals.
Rita?
And because there were so many changes, and we were going through here looking at it, is there any, is it just because it's just time to make the changes to all this, or is there anything to come about to provoke this?
We found ourselves, good question, we found ourselves amending it piecemeal as a problem would come up. We say, gosh, we never thought of that, so we need to change this. And then after what happened with Country Rock a few years ago, that necessitated a couple of changes because of circumstances that we just hadn't anticipated. And the more we kicked it around, we said, you know, we've been doing this piecemeal. What we really need to do is just look at the whole thing overall, as opposed to, you know, Band-Aid this, put your finger in the dike there. Let's just take a look at the whole thing and see what's there. Let's just change it once and for all. Now, there will be glitches in this that'll come up in the future, and we'll say, oh gosh, yeah, well, we should have done something different, and we can fix that. But I believe that this goes a long way to getting this thing far more manageable, business friendly.
The key component is just simple dissemination of the,
Yeah, and
of
it
the
doesn't-
ordinance.
and it
It's
doesn't
very
run-
difficult under the current one. It was basically broken down in 3 parts. This kind of streamlines it all into one. So the process of applying for the license is much more, it's much less complex than what it was in terms of, like, if I want to do this license and this license, you had to go through multiple different areas and vote. Now, it just literally dovetails from A to B to C and so on.
It makes it a lot better for staff trying to enforce it because there are not so many needless requirements that make no sense.
We also try to take a lot of subjectivity out of it in terms of like measuring distances and things of that nature that were start at this point, measure to a right of way, then points of pedestrian travel, things of this nature. Now it's just all as the crow flies, things of that nature. So it's much more, the subjectivity taken out of it, so it's more modern.
We're requiring people to supply us with a sketch/plat that shows us from their property line what's there. So we don't, it's not up to us to go out and measure it with our wheel and, you know, you come in close, well, how close is it? Well, the wheel isn't that accurate, so, you know.
What they do, have to survey it?
Yes.
Get it surveyed?
Survey, all we want is just a straight line distance to property line.
It's essentially a radius from that business.
Property line is residence, used to be property line, didn't it?
Currently, it's property line, it would be from that business
To the front, to the-
property line by a certain point of travel. Now, it's taking that business into account and then taking a radius. So, like churches, if you're within 600 feet of a church or a school, things of that nature, it's looking for those. It's no longer tied to specific property lines, but to those.
Yeah,
types
but
of
some
uses.
people may be a mile off the road.
Correct.
And it changes, this part changes from the responsibility of the county having to prove you're 300 or X amount of feet away from a school, a church, or something, or a home. It puts it on the impetus of the business owner. They're the ones that make the profit, they're the ones who are gonna pay the burden on this kind of thing, so it kind of changes that. Now, if I'm right, this comes back all the way back from February, March, when we had that workshop to discuss this, and then we found more issues that needed a deliberate review.
This was a massive undertaking, because like Mr. Fortune said, it was just so many years of piecemealing, specifically with respect to distances and things of that nature. It was really a massive undertaking, and just getting it, a lot of it was just antiquated language too, that we had to go through, and address.
And I'm assuming that we can also adhere to any changes after this if something comes up.
If we can amend it, yes, if we've got a glitch in there someplace, and remember when I was in the legislature, it seemed like the first part of each session, they spent about 2 weeks cleaning up laws they had passed the year before because there was something in there that nobody had noticed or some situation had arisen, they realized that they needed to change it. So I'm sure we'll find things in the future we need to fix, but as I said, I think this gets us a long way down the road.
You gotta put them in practice, and then that's where you find out.
Any other questions? Do we have a motion? Do we have a second? We have a motion and a second to approve item 8, the first reading and ordinance amending the Spalding County Code of Ordinances, Part 6, licensing and regulation, Chapter 1, businesses and occupations by deleting Article 8, sale of malt beverages and wine, Article B, retail liquor package store, and Article C, sale of alcoholic beverages for consumption on premises in their entirety, and adding a new Article A, sale of alcoholic beverages. With that, ladies and gentlemen, if there's no further questions, we'll call for the question. All in favor, please show your favor. Unanimous, motion carries. Thank you. Item 9, consider renewal of the Spalding County employment contract, the Spalding manager's employment contract for the year 2014.
I'd like to table that until September 26th at 5:30, seeing that all the commissioners are not here and William's not here.
We have a motion to table item 9, consider renewal of county manager's employment contract for 2014 calendar year, so that we're all here. Do we have a second? We have a motion and a second. All in favor, please indicate said favor if there's no discussion.
Now, the time, can we have a special meeting before the zoning meeting? Because we got a zoning meeting on the 26th. Can we do that at 5:30 or 5 o'clock?
Hang on, we can pull up the calendar.
Give us a
Said
second.
5:30
Ricky's getting on it.
I mean, do y'all think that's enough time?
Yeah, I don't think it's gonna take more than 30, 45 minutes.
Well, 45 minutes, we got a meeting at 6 o'clock.
Yeah, then we'll have to do it in 30.
Okay. No, that's fine.
Ricky, is there any conflict that you can tell?
No, sir.
Well, what time?
5:15 then?
Yeah,
I'll
we'll do
do 5:15 just to be safe.
Yeah, 5:15. We need to be through before people come in for the other.
5:15.
We have a motion to table that, to table the county manager employment contract for 2014 calendar year to September 26th at 5:15 PM that afternoon. With that, we have a second by Commissioner Johnson. Any further discussion? All in favor of stated motion and second, please indicate said favor. Unanimous, motion carries. Thank you. With that, we will move to item 10, consider establishing a date for a workshop to discuss proposed vehicle policy use.
I'd like to table that too until all commissions here and meetings back. I think it's gonna probably gonna have to have another meeting just for it anyway, but I think we'd be better off to wait until everybody sees it.
Well, I agree, there's no sense of setting a meeting like tonight with
No.
3 people unavailable, before we may have to change it again. So do you want to just change that to the next board meeting?
We'll bring it up at the next board meeting.
Okay. Ricky, when is the next board meeting?
October the 6th.
October 6th. So we have a motion, no, do we have a motion, we have a motion to establish a date for the workshop to discuss the proposed vehicle use policy on October the 6th at the next board meeting.
I second.
We have a second. Any further questions, comment? If not, we'll call for the question. All in favor, please show your favor. Motion carries. Thank you very much. Item 11, consider approval of application permit 13-12 as requested by Alberta Fox for the gathering to be held on October the 11th, 2013 at 1832 West Ellis Road, beginning at 6 p.m. and ending at 10 p.m. Chad, will you address?
Yes, sir. At this point, all fees have been paid on this request. We've reviewed the application and staff recommends approval.
Any questions, ladies and
I
gentlemen?
think this hits the time frame too, so that's.
Yes,
good.
it does.
Okay. I make a motion to approve.
Do we have a motion to approve? Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the amplification permit 13-12 as requested by Alberta Fox for a gathering to be held on October the 11th, 2013 at 1832 West Ellis Road, beginning at 6:30 p.m. and ending at 10 p.m. All in favor of stated motion in a second, please indicate said favor. Motion carries 3-0. And item 12, consider approval of the application permit 13-13 as requested by Linda Kendrick for a wedding reception to be held on October 5th, 2013, beginning at 6 p.m. to 11 p.m. The event will be held at 203 Seminary Ridge. Chad, will you address?
Just like with the last one, all fees have been paid. We've reviewed the application and recommend approval, and again, this is within the same 5-hour window I think that you referenced on the last one.
Motion to approve.
We have a motion to approve. Bart, you have a second? We have a motion to approve the application permit 13-13 as requested by Linda Kendrick for a wedding reception to be held on October 5th, 2013, beginning at 6 p.m. to 11 p.m. The event will be held at 203 Seminary Ridge. Any further discussion? All in favor, state a motion in a second. Please indicate said favor. Unanimous, 3-0. Okay, next is the report of the temporary county manager.
All right, a couple things that we wanted me to go over with y'all this evening. To date, the county has collected $7,481.64 for United Way. That's approximately about 60% of the $12,500 goal. We're still collecting in hopes that we'll reach that goal. This past Saturday, the boat race was held for United Way. As my understanding, everybody had a really good time. Park and Recreation entered the boat. However, unfortunately, they didn't win, but they did a good job with it. As my understanding, the final race was between UGA and Caterpillar, with UGA winning. I think there's an excellent picture out there of Mr. Clark racing in a kayak. After the boat awards were given, there was a drawing held for the two $250 Walmart gift cards. This is done for each employee that contributes at least $1 per paycheck. They get at least one entry with a maximum of up to 5 entries per person. The two winners were Al Gibson and Bill Harden, Parks and Recreation. So congratulations to them.
Didn't the fire department put a boat in that race too? They didn't.
Not this
They
year.
ran into technical difficulties on them before they got there.
I know, I heard they was gonna put one, I just wondered.
This past September 11th, the county held a blood drive. 55 people signed up to give blood. There was 47 procedures that were completed, and 51 pints were collected by Red Cross. And another thing, the county did receive an email a big compliment indicating how courteous all the staff was and how efficient the blood drive was, that it was well put on. So, it's good to hear. Also wanted to bring up to you guys the Flint building here at 115 North 6th, just right next door. It's undergoing a rezoning for a church with the city. That's in process. I believe they had their first meeting on it with the planning commission tonight. County does own 4 parking spaces here in the back that are utilized usually with, in conjunction with that building. It's my understanding you guys received an email in reference to this, so we wanted me to kind of touch base with you guys, kind of drop a bug in your ear to be thinking about that. They, it's my understanding that from the pastor, Mr. Moody, for Journey Church, that they hold 2 services on Sunday mornings. There's a 9:15 and 11 o'clock. There's no Sunday night services. They do have a Wednesday evening youth meetings, usually at 6:30. From Monday through Friday during normal business hours, they will be utilizing parking for a pastor, a youth pastor, a children's director, and a church secretary, but only the pastor is full-time. All of the rest are temporary.
That's Journey Church, isn't the one that was standing uptown?
Yes, sir. That's it. So, just kind of wanted you guys to be considering that once they get through all the city zoning, that'll probably come up, the county will work out an agreement with them on those 4 spaces in the back. If you guys got any input, by all means, kind of shoot that through. And then after that, the first and second hearings on the tax increase are scheduled for Monday, September 16th. The first meeting is at 11 o'clock, and then the second meeting is at 5 p.m.
September 23rd.
Oh, I'm sorry, yes, correct. September 23rd.
11 o'clock and 5 o'clock, that right, Chad?
Yes, sir. And then, the Griffin Spalding Area Transportation Committee will meet on September 25th, at 1:30. The meeting that was scheduled for this Wednesday, has been canceled and rescheduled to the following. So we will meet at 1:30, on the 25th. And again, there will be a BOC, zoning hearing on the 26th at 6 o'clock. That's pretty much it.
5:15.
Actually, Mr. Clark indicates here that there is a Council on Aging appointment for the next agenda.